always now. It's always now. There never was a used to be. Everything is here with me. There's always now.
Excellent. Excellent, John.
Voice, John.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. You know, that's what happens when you move to Texas.
Oh.
You get vocal cords and become an artist.
That's it.
That sounds good.
So we're recording. We're live. I see people are starting to come in. So welcome. Digital-Roundtable is up. The year is almost over. Can you believe it? It's December 2nd. Lots going on. We have a great show for you all today. My cohorts are here in full force, and we have a great guest speaker. But let me just acknowledge my cohorts and say a quick hello. Hello, Llewelyn.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
How is the weather in New Hampshire?
Well, I'm not in New Hampshire, so I can't speak to it, but here in Rhode Island, it's all up there, far away, far from Texas. It's turned chilly, I will say. It's not awful, but it's around 40 degrees, 45 degrees, not too warm, not ideal for swimming or playing golf, but there you are.
Yeah, no, well, I appreciate that. I was just doing a East Texas joke, so that's why I call you New Hampshire. John, how are you today?
I'm fine. I'm looking not to welcoming the new year in, but I'm gonna welcome this year out. But I'm doing fine. Everything is going pretty good as expected. It's a lot of things to think about and talk about today.
I like the tie. I like the tie.
Well, thank you, sir. I wore it just for you. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Well, you know, we have a great guest speaker, Jay Zoellner. Jay, are you in London today?
Yes, I'm in London. It's let's see, drizzly, about 34 degrees, and very festive actually, because we just got out of lockdown. So it's like,
really, congratulations!
Yeah, it's awesome.
You're allowed to go out in the streets and go to a pub and have a drink and everything.
Go to a pub. You can eat inside. You can pretty much everything here in London. You still have to wear a mask and still have to socially distance, but it's all all good.
Well, that's just
the COVID vaccine, right?
Yeah, no, that's just fabulous. I mean, it's I mean, I cannot imagine being locked up in London, such a great city, and being locked up. That's ridiculous.
It really is. But kind of like being in lockdown there in Austin with all the sunshine and everything and the warm temperature.
Yeah. Likewise. Yeah, absolutely. So let me introduce you, Jay, for everybody who's listening. So Jay is currently the CEO of Kiwi Power. It is not a New Zealand company, even though it could be, and a global domination. Eventually, they'll get to New Zealand, but it's really a UK company that is moving to the US, in setting up operations here, and Jay will tell us all about it. Kiwi is a virtual power plant provider, and what that means is that Kiwi's Power's platform, called the Kiwi Core, is a simple automated energy as a service technology solution which can easily integrate with power generation and energy storage assets of all kinds, as well as buildings with large power loads, and coordinate the whole thing. So the Kiwi Core connects these assets to energy markets, sort of like ERCOT or PJM or New York ISO or New England ISO and the like, California ISO. So the distributed energy resources owners can participate and succeed in the new energy world. Very exciting. We're going to hear more about it from Jay. Prior to Kiwi, Jay was the president and CEO of Edison Energy. He was the managing director of global industries at Enernoc. He was an executive vice president, general manager at Ameresco. He was chairman and director of EPS Corp. He was senior director at Enron Energy Services. So he was one of the smartest guys in the room at one point in his life.
I was
And
one of the dumbest guys in the room, I think, because I went down the ship.
At least you're still alive.
Yeah, you bet. It was a great experience.
And you're at liberty.
he was a VP of the Bentley Company, and he worked also at ABB Impel Corp, which is actually, I believe, a nuclear arm of ABB. Jay is a former lieutenant in the U.S. Navy. Thank you for your service, sir. Where he served in nuclear submarines, apparently his first passion. And he received a Bachelor of Science degree in physics from the University of Idaho, which makes him a Vandal.
Yes. Exactly.
So Jay, welcome.
Thank you, Andres. It's great to be here with you all. It's so nice. By the way, how are you doing, Andres? You always ask how everyone else is doing. How are you?
I'm actually doing fabulous, Jay. Thanks for asking. The world is moving at a very fast pace. You know, we're releasing the videos for Digital 360 Summit now, and there's all kinds of things going on. And the year is ending with a fury and contracts and signing new deals, and so I can't complain. Everything is going great.
Yeah, CMG is quite the company. You've really built it into something. And you just published your most recent book, I believe I saw in the news here not too
Yeah,
recently.
the 40th book. And
40 books?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I got to start writing.
Well, you know, we just you gotta move to Austin so we can hang out more often.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be really good.
So let me dive into our format here real quick, Jane, and we're gonna come back to you to get your insights and your wisdom, because you are, you know, an American, but you're now living in Europe, and you have an interesting view of the world as you're globe-trotting everywhere. COVID death in the U.S. continued to climb, not as fast as the last few weeks. It's slowing down a little bit, but it's still in 267,000 number, which is, you know, still a bad number, but trending down slightly. In terms of cases, we're in the 13.4 million, up rough almost 1 million cases from last week. Still trending down, but it's still a significant number of cases. You know, the stock market hit the Dow 30,000 a week and a half ago or so, and now it's come down a tiny little bit, but you know, the market went up about 100 points from last week, and on the Dow, and 37 points up on the New York Exchange Index, and up 200 points on NASDAQ, and up 28 points on the S&P 500. Crude oil is slightly down 35 cents at 44.49, which is a good price for the fracking companies and the like to make money. And believe it or not, the gallon of gasoline is staying steady in Texas. In the greater Austin area, that a gallon of gasoline is at $1.49.
It's about $4 in California.
$4 in California. Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing though that who would have ever thought that in this day and age a gallon of gas would be still so cheap. And then you know, the economy added 266,000 jobs in November, which is you know, a total of 11.4 million jobs added since May. So, you know, the recovery moving in the right direction. Obviously, not everything is open 100%, and we have a significant issue on a COVID divide, you know, that is going on. But what's happening with COVID in the UK? You mentioned a little bit that you got an opening. You know, things are back to normal. But what do you see in Europe? What do you see? What is the conversation about the US? And what is the economy doing in Europe, and what is the conversation about what they see happening here with, you know, the economy, the new administration coming in? What's the feedback that you can share?
Yes, that's really interesting. It's quite different. So I was in the States, I would say about a month ago now, and the the rancor that's in the States about the politics, just about how the businesses are doing and about how COVID and the various approaches to COVID, it's quite amazing. Here in the UK, things are much more civilized. I mean, they definitely have their points of differences. Manchester, for example, there was a big kind of like, hey, you got to let us open up because this is just nuts. So a lot of the same arguments, but I do have to say, the UK government supports their people and their businesses quite a bit more strongly than maybe what's happening in the States. It's quite amazing to see the difference from that standpoint. Although the UK just hit something like their debt is something like 92% of their GDP. That is an amazing amount of borrowing that they're doing had to do through all this, because they're basically supporting people with 80% of their salaries if they're furloughed, and it's quite amazing. Now you look at the States, and of course everybody's wondering where the next $1,200 check is going to come from.
Right.
So it's really quite different. As far as the election goes, they're quite enamored with the fact that Biden is now at least seems to be the president-elect. So they're quite jubilant, I would say, about that. Everyone is quite supportive of that in Europe and in the UK, of course. And then, I think about how the economies are doing. It is starting to sink in. We just had a 242-year-old retail business called Debenhams here in the UK just is closing down. I think.
Really?
Yeah, that's going to happen. So, and then the Arcadia Group, which is like Topshop for retail clothing, just went into administration, which is like bankruptcy there. So it's beginning to have an effect.
Right. Interesting. Llewelyn?
Well, I think that the good numbers for November in employment are not going to be sustained, because the second wave and maybe the third wave of the virus is worse than you could imagine. We now have the highest occupation of hospitals. We have exhausted hospital and medical staff. This is going to be a very difficult time. It is somewhat leavened by the knowledge that we're going to have a vaccine soon. So the question becomes, how will it be distributed? How will it be allocated? And then when it is freely and generally available, one of 3 vaccines should be available by spring, who will get it? That is a very difficult and bothersome subject. My informal survey of doctors says 1/3 will get it, 1/3 will wait to see if it works, and 1/3 won't get it. Other surveys suggest that half won't get it. And Britain, I saw, Jay, they're worried that only 67% of the people, who tend to be, as you sort of suggested, more inclined to go with what's recommended by government, only 67%. If it's around 60% that are inoculated by next summer, we have not conquered the virus. It will be with us for years, and it will take a long time to work its way out. We have to go to 80, 90% inoculation, really to say that we're out of the woods. I think what's awfully interesting is the innovation that is coming along, often stirred, but not essentially stirred by COVID, particularly in medicine. You have the examination using artificial intelligence of all sorts of things that we've invented. Take in medicine. We're seeing all these off-label, and then they become formalized uses just to treat COVID. It's true of everything. We're getting to a point where we can look at what we've invented and apply it to other things, which is very exciting. And we can do it across the board. It doesn't have to be confined to medicine. The big breakthrough is probably with medicine, where we find, for example, that you can treat some inflammation with low-dose radiation. You can use a drug prepared for or primarily used for malaria, to treat COVID, possibly, at least to treat some patients with some success. Baylor University is advocating that. And of course, the president has. And we're seeing it in everything else. It gives us an opportunity to assess what our true inventory of invention is and to apply it. We haven't done that in the past because we haven't had the mechanism. In medicine, you have thousands of compounds developed by the pharmaceutical companies over years, but we don't know which ones they work for. I give you, for example, thalidomide, a scourge when it was introduced and given to pregnant women because they had limbless children. I was living in England at the time and it was terrible. My first wife, a very gifted journalist, covered that, and it was just horrific. She'd come home every night and say, you cannot believe how awful. Now we find that thalidomide has other safe uses, in Parkinson's, for example. So this reuse explanation, I think they call it, the use of something, it comes out of, that word comes out of biology, where when you use something for a purpose other than what it was originally designed for. And the one they like to quote, or the biologists quote as an example, wings on birds, which were developed in nature to keep them warm, and then they found they're quite good for doing this. And that changed everything. So it's very exciting, a lot of innovation, a lot of invention. And I would say that we're very lucky that there has been a convergence of technological evolution with the virus. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking to each other now. If Zoom and its affiliates had not been developed, communication in this terrible time would be much more difficult. And I was at the dentist this morning and I had to sit in the car and call up on my trusty cell phone to be allowed in the building, which is fine. But it wasn't that long ago that we all didn't have cell phones. So we have had a convergence of the virus, hideous virus, and a time of huge productivity in technology.
Yeah, thank you. John?
I think what I really find interesting is how we have switched from the virus per se, which is taken as a standard now. It is sad to report that when you hear it on the news, it is a standard, and the question is, how bad will it be? I think we have switched from that to the reality that we must have a supply chain. So in terms of what we call ingenuity, I was reading a story of United Airlines, and their big wide body jets haven't flown in months and months. They're losing tons and tons of money, but they are repurposing those jets for the supply chain. Mm-hmm. So the question becomes, once we get the tools or the medicine or the vaccination, how do we do it? It's pretty amazing to see how the supply chains are developing underneath, if you will, the virus. So on the one hand, we have United Airlines repurposing their big body jets to take hot ice and to fly things around the globe. And on the other hand, we have people converting buildings to say that you can come here and take the shots. And we will be talking essentially about millions and millions of people. Yep. The other thing that I find very, very interesting is, given the virus and given our new business model, whether it's what we're doing here, will corporate America recommit itself to office space? That is a huge, huge issue in the city of Austin. As you know, we have built downtown Austin in a very, very rapidly kind of way. In addition to office buildings, we have condos starting at 1.8 million that reach the sky. It's much like New York City. It's a disgrace to the great state of Texas, but we have it. And the question is this: will people continue to live in those kind of areas, or will we see a bounty of single story building homes, or homes essentially evolving? So those are two things that I see that we're looking at, and it's fascinating to look at how people really, really react. And the other thing is what we've talked about before. If you look at income, if you look at who really got hurt, in Austin, about 52 to 58% of the people make their money or can make their money online. And as we've said before, it is the gig economy that's got to be propped up. It has to have some kind of net under it. I don't see why we can't do this. Why not take a stimulus package after this is over and create a fund for the gig economy? It might be, $1 trillion, might be billions of dollars, and have that fund purpose to really, really understand that when we have something like this again, the gig economy will not be hurt. So in terms of the American economy, if you are able to work at home, productivity is up, things are doing fine, sales are up, and the companies that's really, really doing bad are the companies where there's contact with people that also depend on the gig economy. So there's a bifurcation, if you will, of the future here. And how we look at that bifurcation will be very, very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Whenever we use the indicators of what's happening, there's a step in everybody's step about a solution to the virus coming in many kinds of vaccinations. And there's a way of looking to the future like we haven't looked to the future since World War II.
Yeah, yeah. Jay, what's your take on office space? What are you and your company rethinking how you do that? Are you going to become a virtual company, or what business model makes sense going forward? What do you think?
It's really interesting. So when I first got here to London, right, city center is where our office is. Vibrant, alive, jostling, going. I mean, it was amazing, right? You go out for lunch, plenty of places to grab something for lunch, anything that you want to do anywhere. Fabulous. It's exactly what I expected when I got here. COVID hit. I went down there after maybe a month after we had closed our office. Dead. I just went back here again. While it had picked up a little bit, still very, very empty. Think about it. This is London, one of the premier cities in the world, financial center of Europe, and it's basically shut down. So there's a big area called, oh shoot, no, I even forget the name of it, but it's basically where all the big financial banks are. It's all out. Nobody is in those offices even today. Now for Kiwi Power, as soon as they announced the lockdown, we left the office that day. We haven't been back since, and we haven't missed a beat, and we've had record sales this year, just to the point that John was just speaking about. All the people in the hotels, they're really hurting. The pubs, the restaurants, really hurting. Our business is thriving.
Fascinating.
I'd like to ask Jay to explain what Kiwi does and what it sells. I looked it up on the web and I confused myself, which happens quite easily.
So Kiwi Power is basically a distributed energy services company. So we interact with our customers through a software program, and we basically license our software to utilities, to end use customers, and to virtual for generation plants, wind, solar, et cetera, to use our software to access the grid and understand how they use it and get money from it.
Thank you. And a follow-up question. It emphasizes, obviously, distributed generation, emphasizes renewables, and Europe and Britain in particular have gone very largely into wind and are really staking their futures on wind. But I have seen in my coverage over the decades how we were enthusiastic about coal, enthusiastic about fluidized bed boilers, enthusiastic about nuclear, enthusiastic about gas. And in due course, we found something wrong with each of these, sometimes severely wrong, as with coal. Or I remember a time when you could buy asbestos shingles for your house, make sure it didn't burn down if you lived long enough. So I wonder whether we're not going to wake up one day and say, there's this downside to wind beyond killing birds and bats. There's this downside to wind that we hadn't anticipated. It is going so fast, consuming a lot of ocean space, and a lot of land area. What are your feelings about what is the limit to this? Will we go like the office builders who built too many offices, which we now don't need? Will it be the same kind of over-enthusiasm, over-expectation, and old-fashioned greed?
You know, it's amazing, Llewelyn. So the newest shiny object, I would say, is hydrogen. That's the newest.
Oh yeah, it's shining very brightly, very brightly.
Shining very, very brightly. But you raise a really interesting point, and I think that it's just man's inclination, humanity's inclination to kind of exhaust whatever it is that we're trying to do to the point of oversupply, and then supply and demand kind of takes over, and either that or regulation begins to say, wait a minute, or the people revolt against it and say, this is too much. So I suspect, frankly, though, what I really think is amazing is that renewable energy has an incredible amount of legroom to go. But the thing that is going to limit it is the availability of the grid and how flexible the grid can be to accommodate the interruptible nature of all that generation that we're building and we're going to rely on. I think if there's an overreach, the overreach may be on the renewable aspect and not so much understanding what the base load needs to be. Having come from nuclear and a lot of the historical generation capabilities, I think it's very important to have a base load of generation, and then you can address the other things. I think if there's an overreach, that's the possible danger. I'm not sure about land requirements. I don't see that as particularly a limiting factor. I do see the flexibility of the grids being a limiting factor.
Yeah.
I think Andreas can answer the question, as he's been involved with getting the stuff back, the renewable back on the grid without burning California down through different controls at the edge. I think that's
that's a really good point, John. That's a really good point. I think if you listen to Elta Colo's interchange, Elta Colo's with Wood Mac, she did an interchange, which is a podcast. It's really great. Look for it probably early part of September. Get this. This is amazing. This is an amazing fact. California has 2.2 gigs of demand capability. Only 200 megawatts of that is available to respond within 15 minutes. And 15 minutes is not going to cut it going forward. It needs to be far more instantaneous. And that's what I love about the UK power grid, is that it is, and it's one of the reasons I took this job, was because I could see that the United States needed to get there pretty quickly, and the UK pretty much already had it. And so I wanted to learn as much as I could about doing business here so that we could translate that capability, that expertise, and that technology to the United States.
Yeah, yeah.
So Andre, in terms of smart power grids and edge and getting stuff back on, where are we in America? If I could be the host for 2 seconds and ask you a question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So basically, there is no United States of America. We have 50 states, and the most of sophisticated states are Texas, number 1. Number 2 would be now Illinois. Number 3 would be Washington, D.C. and Pennsylvania. And then number 4 would be, or number 5 would be California. In terms of sort of, existing systems working today with, regulations and transactions, right? New York has been for the longest time dreaming up a new way of doing things, but they still have not deployed their, what they call the New York Rev. So still, a dream is still a piece of paper, still not executed. It requires all kinds of things that are still to be deployed. They probably on paper has the most sophisticated, ambitious thing. So Texas would be sort of farther as ahead in terms of a grid that is totally controlled, real time, managed with smart meters everywhere, with, you know, flexible load everywhere, with the ability to have, you know, Kiwi, for example, is doing things in Texas already, and Jay can talk more about that. But then you got California, I mean, you got Australia, New Zealand, which are ways at the similar rate of Texas, in some cases, maybe a little farther ahead. And then you got the UK, which is just as far ahead as Australia, New Zealand. And then, you know, there are some parts of Western Europe, Germany, Norway, you know, Finland and the like, which are fairly sophisticated also. And Jay can talk more about that. But I think the United States, the challenge that we have in the United States is we don't have a nationwide, you know, platform, a nationwide set of standards. You know, every state does whatever it wants, and there are really 10 you know, jurisdictions for wholesale power in North America, including the Canadians. And every region is totally different. And Jay can tell you that's one of the challenges and one of the frustrations of selling anything in the US.
Thank you.
It is. You know, we talk about the Great Reset that's happening with the economics in, you know, the World Economic Forum. This is, you know, kind of back to Llewelyn's first point about the innovation. It just seems to me, it seems so strange that this United States just can't seem to solve this key issue on a united front. I mean, there's, like you said, there's maybe, what, 10 different jurisdictions.
Yep.
That's not that many people to try and get together, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. However, though, that I wanted to jump to what's going on in the smart energy, Jay, and get your feedback on, you know, clearly, though, even though, you know, because we're a federation, we move kind of slowly and everybody moves at their own pace. There are two things that have happened that are pretty important, right? So in January of 2018, FERC came out with Order 841 that allows energy storage at any location to be able to be, you know, sort of to participate in the wholesale market. And then in September of this year, Order 2222, some people call it 2x4, like a piece of wood hitting you in the head. It's an order that allows aggregators, right? And you can think of any aggregator. It could be Kiwi Power, but it could be any company. And that it's all about allowing for those distributed assets to come into the, you know, sort of the portfolio management of one single company that can bring that onto the marketplace. And so I know that you're excited about that. Tell us why do you see that as a watershed moment, and what's your take on it and what's going to happen?
Yeah, 2222 and 841 are key. I think it's great that FERC is laying down the law. I think what'll be interesting is, okay, so, you know, there's still a lot of patchwork and some opt-out provisions within those. If you're below a certain number of energy usage per year, then you're not subject to it. But I think if you're smart and you're looking ahead, you will try and incorporate yourself into one of the programs that do that. What's coming down the pike is, it's going to take them it's going to take the states, everybody, to figure out maybe a year and a half, 2 years to figure this out. But once they do, it's going to take off. I mean, already you mentioned California. Mm-hmm. I think I just read a note that said that California is seeking to add 1.5 gigs of energy storage by 2022. That's big. Again, the penetration rate, the renewable penetration rate, the storage rate, EV penetration, all of that is going to require grid flexibility. And what Kiwi does, the reason why we think this is so important, 2222 and 841, is it gives so many different utilities, end use customers, municipals, all of those different players, aggregators, the opportunity to participate in those markets and earn money from it. And Kiwi Power is basically offering the software to any one of those players to say, here's how you can do it.
Right.
our vision is to simplify distributed energy for global sustainability impact.
Right. So what is the likelihood, and I know these guys are going to want to ask some more questions from you. What is the likelihood of Kiwi convincing somebody like Tesla or GM or somebody to put the Kiwi fruit in the car and the Kiwi core somewhere in the cloud and let the next million electric vehicles be part of that?
You know what I think it's going to come down to, frankly, is security, cybersecurity. That is the key. And that is probably the number one thing that we have that's very different from anyone else is the standards of our platform are highly secure, tested, and certified to the highest levels that are out there right now. So we think that that's really critical. So I think that's probably the number one thing that people are going to be dodgy about. Okay, show me that this can work. I know that actually because we just did a project or we were just selected because the prior company that was there did not pass the security requirements. So they came back to Kiwi Power and are installing our system based on not anything else around its capabilities or its ease of use, around its security. So we think I think that's probably the number one consideration.
Well, Jay, that was my question. And if you go back to, anything that's smart can be hacked. And then let's go back to the military. I too am a military guy, Vietnam veteran. And we took a security company, we called it the Wheel Group, and I was involved, and we sold it to Cisco 30 years ago. What can we learn from the cybersecurity from the military organizations? Now, we know that the way up came from military organizations. And do you believe that they have a type of security that they should start to share with private enterprises today? There's no doubt in my mind, I'll say this, that the technology that America has will just, as the old saying, blow your mind. The technology capabilities. And we know that cyber is a huge issue, cyber protection, security. In terms of software protection, as you guys go through the mechanism of securing your software, is there a disjunction between what we know that's secure in DoD and we're working for in the private sector, and should they now combine?
Yeah, that's above my pay grade, even when I was in the military. But I think there must be. I think that a lot of it has to do with even the available frequencies that you can use, the different bandwidth channels that you can use. So a lot of that is definitely a part of it. So it's part infrastructure, part capability, and part just technology.
Yeah.
Let me follow that up with, we have talked a lot about Europe and America, and let's throw China in the mix in terms of 5G. And let's ask a different kind of question. As we move forward with security, and I would always say that to Americans, to me, Russia was pretty interesting, but could never get up to deliver anything. Lots of sciences, could never really get there. And I think that China has it all, in my opinion. The ability to do scientific work, to borrow from others, if you will, and to also put it into play. And I think, not since I've seen America being able to do that, I think that China can do that as a fabulous country with the technology. It is a market economy sitting on a communist throne. When we throw China into the mix, cybersecurity, going future, 5G, what's your opinion on that? Because it will come up in the market, in the world discussions in the world square pretty soon.
Yeah, it is. That's a really interesting question. I'm not sure I'm smart enough to be able to answer it, John, but I think that my opinion is that we have fallen behind. I agree with you that I think that we've either fallen behind to the point that you're saying it's just not being shared with private industry the way China can do that, or perhaps now we're beginning to fall behind and even more in danger because of like the H-1B visa limitations that are being put upon. You've got to have an open economy and the ability to attract the best and brightest. And I am concerned that the States is overreaching what they're trying to do with that. So that's probably about the extent of my knowledge on that one, John.
Okay, I was just wondering, I was way above my pay grade when I was in the military. So, but I think it's very, very interesting because I finished a paper on the privatization of the military. That is, all of those companies, private companies that's doing work for the military.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they are let in on a secret when it comes to secret, quote unquote, security. Because if you look at our military capabilities now, if you look at what private companies are doing, it's off the scale. It's not the old self-contained scientific military that we had when I came out of college. It is a military that is very, very cooperating with civilian firms to not only to fight battles, to provide all of the scientific and electronic and technology on how we do things. So we have gone from an institutional-based model to an occupational-based model of military organization, and contained with all of that is cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big challenge.
I'd like to ask and Jay a little bit about the technologies of storage. Again, we tend to be terribly focused on batteries. So I was very interested to see CPS, Texas Utility, put out a request for information, which is now being reformed into a request for proposal for a wide range of storage. And they got some very interesting responses, which included, of course, things that we had almost forgotten, like pump storage, but putting it in used coal mines or other mines where you have a suitable fall, which is still, I understand, the most efficient way of storing electricity. Compressed air and a whole set of flywheels again, which have been around since I started looking at this in 1970. They sort of always come back, and then I don't know about flywheels, but a whole set of things besides and beyond batteries. The assumption being that you always store electricity in batteries, because that's how our minds are wired. That's what we've always done with the automobile. We store the electricity to start it in a battery. So that an expansion of that is we must store the electricity to even the load, which is fair. But there are other ways. Have you looked at other ways? And does your company hook up to, say, there's one company somewhere that wants to use a train, run it up a mountain and let it come down slowly, generating electricity? All of these ideas of mechanical storage as opposed to electronic storage, which are very tempting, or at least deserve a hearing.
Well, you know what's interesting is, so we were talking to the Eurostar trains that run back and forth, and I guess they have a technology that that all their braking power, it's not that unusual, I suppose, because that's what Tesla does, but all their braking powers are coming into these stations is used to charge stationary batteries as they're coming into these different stations. So it's interesting to see that happening. There's opportunities, I think, for storage, but none of them really seem to be commercial enough. And I think the problem is in scaling these opportunities. So compressed air storage, et cetera, you got to have the big caverns or whatever. How many places are there that you can really do that? I think that's the thing that's probably why lithium ion has become so popular, is its ability to scale. So we personally at Kiwi, we are connected to megawatts, tens of megawatts of lithium ion storage. So that's clearly an opportunity for us. Not so much in the unusual or more grid edge type of storage opportunities. We don't see that necessarily.
Yeah, what I would add to all that is that, you know, I mean, it ultimately the economics of this is what matters, and some of the solutions are bound by their physical presence, sort of like, you know, a salt mine, a coal mine. They're not available everywhere. Ultimately, what makes prices go down is volume, and so all you have to remember is that this little device that we all carry is really the driver for cheaper glass, cheaper semiconductors, cheaper batteries, cheaper plastics, and everything like that. And so that's really the volume to emulate. So, you know, lithium ion cells in cars is the cheapest energy storage available for industrial setting. You know, you all know that you can buy AAA and AA Duracell batteries very cheaply, made out of copper. So that's the model that makes prices go down, right? So again, affordability is really the ultimate trumping card on all these things. So you know, I think that's you know, we're witnessing the beginning of stuff, and I think it's fascinating what Kiwi is doing in the UK and in Europe, and then soon to be doing at mass scale in the US. But let me switch and share with you a couple of things that I think are interesting. And John kind of, you know, mentioned a little bit about it, but you know, it seems like with smart cities, there is a whole reshuffling going on, and I think the reconditioning of business being, you know, zero energy or zero water or zero waste sustainability is going to become a big thing. You know, as this new administration is going to get back to the Paris Accord, and sustainability is a big deal. And now everybody's looking at what's going on in the Amazon, with Brazil burning millions and millions of acres. And so interesting trend going on in the US, abandoned mall sites in Seattle and New York City becoming senior housing projects. So basically, you know, what are you going to do with all this office space downtown and wherever it is sitting around? It's going to become, you know, where are the, you know, 40 million, you know, poverty line people, and, you know, 5 million homeless in the US going to live, and what does that look like, right? At the same time, you got things going on that are interesting in terms of partnerships and accelerating things. So Mississippi Power is planning what they call smart neighborhood with Tesla solar roofs in a big scale. So Mississippi Power is owned by Southern Company out of Atlanta. And then Portland, Oregon city employees to pilot e-cargo bikes, you know. So again, you know, COVID has been a, you know, a double-edged, you know, gift, terrible for many people. But in one of the things that he has done, and this is something that we talked a lot about, Jay, is it has accelerated adoption. You know, adoption of Zoom, adoption of digital technologies, the delivery model now. You know, obviously you guys are reopening now, but there's many things that are digital economy driven. So automation, more automation. So what's your take on how do you see COVID and accelerating things and the digital transformations happening? You say you're 2020 was a great year, has been a great year for Kiwi. What do you see 2021, 2022? What do you think is happening? Are things picking up, a hockey stick kind of thing on automation of buildings, energy management?
Yes, we see that in spades, actually. It's one of the big reasons why our growth was pretty large here this year, primarily because the ability of our software in a software as a service model really simplifies the ability to get new assets participating in all these different programs quickly. So we don't have to go to the site. The site can basically, everything happens over the internet. The installation, if there is any installation, it's a very simple installation of our Kiwi fruit. So we see that the opportunity for, number one, people are going to be looking for higher financial utilization out of their assets. The second reason, they want to be able to do that quickly and effectively without a lot of labor time themselves. And third, it needs to be in a simple enough format so that they can understand what's happening with their assets. So that's why we think this whole move towards flexibility in our particular business is simplifying that distributed energy problem, opportunity, however you want to see it. And we do it all remotely. So it's really quite unique. We were basically got from time, an example of that is in Houston. We had a couple different installations up to 4.5 megawatts. Within 2 weeks, they were up and running and participating from us getting the order to them having the equipment on site, doing what they need to do, up and registered in participating in the ERCOT market. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think automation is driving everything.
Wait, what's your take on the importance of 5G and the proliferation of broadband access everywhere? Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? Is it overhyped?
Fantastic thing. We want it. We've got our, I think there's a lot of emotion around that particular technology. Britain bought into it as well, or pressured into it. I don't know, but yeah, it's limiting if you don't, and it's only going to suppress our capabilities going forward and what we need to do to communicate like this. I mean, you guys are hitting the nail right on the head with everything that you've been doing. I've followed you for probably 10 years, I think now, and you were on the forefront of this even before I knew you. So it's amazing what you've done with CMG and how this is, how you've seen this developing. It's all about this.
Yeah, thank you. Llewelyn, any questions, or John?
Just tell the Europeans to send our colleagues this Nobel Prize based on your comments that you just made, Jay, on the greatness. Great.
I have an off the
Speed up the Nobel Prize.
I'm now a professor running a research lab too, so there you go.
There you go.
Jay, I wanted to ask you, and it's off the wall in relation to the conversation we've had, but I was amazed to read that Britain is planning a fusion reactor to make power. This seems to me quite extraordinary.
It's the Holy Grail, isn't it? I mean,
it's been the Holy Grail since I've been following it for 50-some years. It's always, there used to be this guy Gottlieb at Princeton. Every 6 months he had a breakthrough in the New York Times. They had a collaboration on, and when I wrote something in the Energy Daily suggesting that these breakthroughs were not, breakthroughs, they got very angry and scientific. But there's suddenly a lot of interest in fusion. And now I read that Britain might actually try to build a reactor from which will make power, a tokamak, some sort of special tokamak. I'm very dubious, so I just wondered, as an old nuclear guy, what your take was.
Yeah, I'm with you, Llewelyn. I think I'm dubious as well. I think it would be fantastic to harness the power of the sun with something other than PV, but I'm not exactly sure that we're there. Yeah, it is a very complicated matter, as you know.
It's turned almost everyone off, and it's everybody's pipe dream. And it's a wonderful place for scientists to play and learn other things.
Remember that, Llewelyn, that Nikola Tesla, my favorite person, said that the movement of the Earth and the planets would provide enough energy if we could capture it to have everything from wireless electricity plus the sun. So perhaps when he died in a hotel room in New York, that all of his papers were confiscated. So the pipe dream of that might be in the science that we do, and it might not be, but certainly Nikola.
Nobody knows with Tesla whether he actually had an idea that was viable. He was, in fact, the the father of alternating current, I think, and many other things. He was very brilliant. He had, and very difficult and very strange. And he lived in that hotel on 8th Avenue near the Penn Station there. I've been fascinated by Tesla, like many other people, that I'm disinclined to be sure that he had he wanted to be able to transmit electricity the way we have radio waves, and he thought
Yes.
he could do it.
I have read everything that he's written. It is fantastic, man. Yeah, I guess I had a question for JJ. As you look at your industry, and as you look at how it has progressed very, very slowly, and if you look at all of the things that's coming online with 5G, you know, we talked about this, all of the cell phones, and Andrea's telling me there's going to be, you know, 50 times as more or whatever cell phones or the Internet of Things. How do you think the Internet of Things will affect your ability to go in, do the software, provide security, and is there any overlap there? Because with 5G, the biggest change would be there'll be so many things attached to the Internet. And how will that affect your business or enhance your business?
I think it will enhance our business exponentially, because if you think about it, the biggest barrier to financial utilization and improvement is the fact that you can, basically everybody can just go down to maybe a megawatt right now. That's one of the things that Kiwi Power does, is we make, because our costs are so low for getting people on, and so we can make it happen so quickly, we can take it down much, much lower. So our addressable market is expanded. However, if you can do this with 5G, then it makes that, it really collapses that pyramid from the large asset to the middle market to the mass market, all kind of into one thing, because it makes the cost of acquisition of an asset so much smaller. I think it will do nothing but enhance it. But in the meantime, I think the biggest barrier is regulation. And I'm not kidding when I say we need a reset on how electricity is managed and distributed through all of these different economies. I think it's a big limitation for how we grow. And we need to rethink that.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. We're almost out of time, gentlemen. I wish we could stay longer. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Jay Zoellner. I wish you fantastic holidays. And I know that you'll be back visiting us. Come to Austin anytime you're here. Look how pretty the city looks. I mean, it's a
beautiful. Beautiful, absolutely.
And if you have time to go to East Texas, be sure to stop in Rhode Island.
We have great Italian restaurants and wonderful beaches.
You know, we also have a London in East Texas too, and a Paris.
That's right.
Well, it's been an incredible pleasure speaking with you, John, Llewelyn, and Andrea. It's always great to see you. Thank you so much for having me on your program here. It's been a real pleasure. Great, really thought-provoking questions. Thank you so very much for the opportunity.
The joy is ours, Jay.
We're looking forward to hearing the riveting success of Kiwi Power. I love the name.
It's a great name, isn't it? Yeah, it's funny. Cheers, gentlemen. Happy holidays to you all.
John, take us away with the music.
Love that music.
Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. Now it looks as if they're here to stay. Oh, I believe in yesterday. Why she had to go, I don't know. She wouldn't say. And I say there's something wrong now alone. For yesterday, a little British stuff.
All right. Thank you, John. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Llewelyn.
Okay. Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Andres.
Bye,